they advocated for, and I quote, the exploration of new avenues for tripwire and source development against traditionalist Catholics, it's their language, including those who favor the Latin Mass. Attorney General, are you cultivating sources and spies in Latin Mass parishes? How did it happen?
That's what they're looking into, but I'm totally in agreement with you. That document is appalling.
All right, Senator Josh Hawley had a series of heated exchanges with Attorney General Merrick Garland this past week as Republican lawmakers demand answers from the Justice Department over what they're calling political targeting. Let's bring in our political panel. With us today is Matt Keelen, a GOP strategist and the Vogel Group principal, and Jim Kessler, Democratic strategist and former Senator Charles Schumer policy director. Matt, Jim, thank you both so much for being with us. Big takeaways from this hearing. There was a drill down from Senator Hawley at one moment on the FBI's treatment of Mark Houck. He was that Pennsylvania pro-life activist who was arrested with what some criticized as an excessive use of force. The FBI director was asked about that this past week by our Brett Baer, and he defended it and said, basically, these decisions are made by people on the ground. Merrick Garland gave almost exactly the same answer in this hearing. So starting with you, Matt, are the questions surrounding potential bias in the FBI, in how they're treating conservatives, are your questions resolved?
Absolutely not. As an Irish Catholic whose family had to flee Ireland because of our faith, I can't believe that I'm living in a country today where the Justice Department feels the need to be tracking those who go to Latin Mass, treating Mark Houck and his family with a pre-dawn raid with machine guns drawn for protesting in front of an abortion center. It's appalling. I love that the Senator Hawley and Senator Cruz called them out, and the disparity in the dispensing of justice through this Justice Department, again, is appalling. You have a place like the Compass Pregnancy Center up in New York City that was bombed by Jane's Revenge. There's video footage of the attackers and the license plate of the attackers. The Justice Department and the FBI have done nothing with that footage.
Well, and then also, people have brought up different treatment of, for instance, Black Lives Matter protesters who were torching federal buildings. Some of them didn't have, dramatic arrests like Mark Houck did. Prompted a lot of questions here. Jim, do you think that it's fair that people are looking at these incidents and perceiving, a dual system of justice?
Well, the left a lot of times doesn't like federal law enforcement, and now the right doesn't like federal law enforcement. And, I just point out to, like, Senator Hawley, this century, Missouri has had the 7th highest murder rate in the country. And just this past week, the FBI got a 21-year sentence on a fentanyl dealer there, and they made 6,000 arrests over the summer, and they broke up 895 gangs across the country. So the FBI and federal law enforcement does an awful lot right. They get some things wrong, and we should focus when they get something wrong, but let's not forget to thank them. Like, they're saving a lot of lives and keeping a lot of people safe in this country.
On the other hand, you have House Republicans who are trying to uncover this alleged bias against conservatives in the federal government. And in doing so, there were some witnesses who came forth to testify this past week that were supposed to be one thing, and then according to the New York Times, I want to pull up this full screen here of how they described them. Democrats said a trio of witnesses billed as whistleblowers provided no evidence of wrongdoing, espoused false claims about the Capitol riot, and were compensated by an ally of former President Donald J. Trump. These were supposedly going to be testifying about the role of the FBI and their aggrieved former FBI officials. What does that say to this effort from House Republicans to uncover this bias? And then you're turning up stuff like this, according to Democrats.
Jackie, I think the House Republicans should televise these hearings, personally. But the sources for that piece in the New York Times and the Washington Post were unnamed Democratic sources, which we have seen over the years, particularly since the Trump years. Unnamed Democratic sources turn out oftentimes to be embellishing the truth or trying to blur the lines with the truth and what is not actually factual. So it'd be great to have some actual Democrat members of Congress come forward and say that they believe that. Or, like I said, I think those hearings ought to be televised. The American people should see what their government is doing and how they're doing it. And I did think in the Senate hearings, we did get a chance to see Republican senators grilling the Attorney General over a fair issue. And to his point, look, fentanyl is something that the FBI ought to be taking care of. And they should be lauded when they do that, but they should certainly not be attacking one Christian group or a Catholic group or another based on their faith, as opposed to letting other people go with bombing pregnancy centers and not doing anything about it. And clearly that's going on in this country today.
Well, speaking about putting daylight on a contentious issue, there is this effort in the House. Republicans are reintroducing a bill that would require school districts to post their curriculum publicly, offer in-person meetings with parents, notify parents of any instances of violence or assault in the school. It is a parental rights and education bill that really is a nod to these cultural issues that have become flashpoints in education and debates about education over the last couple of years. Is this going to get any Democratic support, do you think? And should it, if the best remedy for all this controversy is sunshine?
Okay, I think we already have sunshine, okay? So we have 99,000 public schools in America, 23,000 elected school boards in America, or 13,000 elected school boards, and 23,000 parent-teachers associations in this country. Like, locally, they're handling this thing. They don't need like a federal colonoscopy on this. And I have a kid in the DC public schools. I hear everything. It is so much information overload of what I see on the curriculum, any violent incident that happens any day in the school. So I think this is happening. It feels a little bit more like press release politics than real politics to me.
Is this just a setup basically to gauge Democrats, support for something like this and try to maybe set up a play leading into the next election cycle?
If I were Democrats, I'd be talking to Congresswoman Julia Lutlow and trying to co-sponsor H.R. 5, because we saw in the Virginia governor's race a couple of years ago how damaging this issue can be to Democrats. You may remember back then, Terry McAuliffe, not once, not twice, but 3 times said that parents do not have the right to get involved in their school education curriculum. I don't think most parents agree with that. And that was the Democratic governor for Virginia, past governor of Virginia, and a close ally of many of the Democrats in Congress. That was his stated position. And not only did he not state it once, but he had to come back and re-up it 3 times to make sure that everyone knew exactly where he stood, which was that parents did not have the right to be part of the choices that the curriculum for their students. I think that's a ludicrous position for any political party to be backing.
Are Democrats risking, losing support by not getting involved in some of these issues that seem to be determining elections lately, and allowing Republicans to be, running the field as the party that cares about education? Is that a mistake?
Yeah, I think Democrats are showing some vulnerabilities on education. Definitely in the Virginia governor's race, we saw that. I think a lot of that had to do with COVID and the schools being open versus closed and the issues around that. My guess is if there's a culture issue that's going to decide the 2024 election, it's going to be abortion, because you're likely to have a Republican presidential nominee that is going to be pushing, an outright national ban on abortion. And I think that is going to take the top. But on the education issues, there's no doubt Republicans have made some inroads there.
All right. Well, I love having the conversation. We could go on, but we've run out of time. Matt Keelen, Jim Kessler, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.